What if the reason you can't start is not laziness? What if your brain is just doing its job? And what if, in the next 60 seconds, everything could change? Dopa wants to swim. Because Dopa wants change, he looks at the big ocean. Because the ocean looks big, Dopa feels small. Because Dopa feels small, his brain looks for comfort. Because the brain looks for comfort, it searches for quick dopamine. Because quick dopamine feels good, Dopa drifts to distractions. And because Dopa drifts, nothing moves. The first 60 seconds. Dopa feels the urge. Because the urge feels strong, he wants to escape. But Dopa waits. Because Dopa waits, the craving peaks. Because the craving peaks, it can only go down. Because it goes down, the brain calms. Because the brain calms, starting feels lighter. So Dopa swims. And because Dopa swims, day one begins. But one small swim does more than move the body. It starts to change who Dopa thinks he is. Tiny wins rewire. You. Dopa swims again. Because it's small, Dopa doesn't resist. Because Dopa doesn't resist, he repeats it. Because he repeats it, the brain builds a loop. Because the loop exists, starting feels familiar. Because it feels familiar, Dopa stops arguing. And because Dopa stops arguing, Dopa starts to believe, I'm the dolphin who moves. And because Dopa believes that, he moves again. But even when Dopa wants to swim, something still pulls him away. Why? Focus. Dies so fast. Dopa swims. Because a little fish passes by, Dopa looks. Because Dopa looks, attention breaks. Because attention breaks, the brain resets. Because the brain resets, starting again feels heavy. Because it feels heavy, Dopa slows down. So Dopa removes the fish. Because distractions are gone, attention stays. Because attention stays, effort drops. Because effort drops, Dopa swims longer. And now Dopa notices something else. It's not just what he does. It's what he says. One sentence changes everything. Dopa says, "This is hard." Because he says it's hard, the brain expects pain. Because the brain expects pain, Dopa slows down. Dopa says, "This is training." Because he says it's training, the brain expects growth. Because the brain expects growth, Dopa keeps going. And because Dopa keeps going, a chain begins to form. The power of streaks. Dopa swims today. Because he swims, he marks a day. Because he sees the mark, he wants another. Because he wants another, he swims again. Because the chain grows, stopping feels worse than continuing. Because stopping feels worse, Dopa shows up. The ocean is still big. But because Dopa is stronger, it doesn't feel that heavy anymore. Because Dopa waited 60 seconds, he started. Because he started small, he repeated. Because he protected focus, it felt lighter. Because he changed his words, he kept going. Because he built a streak, he became someone new. So if you can't start today, don't fight your brain. Wait 60 seconds. Do something tiny. Remove one distraction. Say one better sentence. Mark one day. Because tiny causes create big effects. Just like Dopa.